Rachel McClintock, General Manager of SNFL Australia. Thank you for your time this evening and your participation. I welcome you to the Australian Commercial webinar. Tonight we will look at an overview of the Shein Varieties collection here in Australia and what has been happening in North America and the Asian markets. Over the next 45 minutes we will also hear from Duncan McIntyre, Chairman of SNFL Group, Carlos Bonet, AM Fresh Commercial Director of North America and Asia, Dandre Gerber, AM Fresh Commercial Director of South Africa, and Michelle Yu, a Chinese importer. Our focus will be Ivory, Timpson, Great Green, Allison and Timco. I now hand you over to Duncan McIntyre. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the SNFL Australia online webinar. First of all, I do hope that you and your families are keeping safe and healthy in these COVID times. For me personally, it's been a big disappointment. Normally I'm in Australia at this time of the year, but obviously due to COVID travel restrictions, that's not been possible for the past 2 years. I did actually think about just rocking up at Melbourne Airport with a bag full of tennis rackets to see if they'd let me in. But then obviously I noticed that the other guy who tried the same trick was eventually deported, so I thought better of it. Anyway, thanks again for taking the time to join us today. We do know how busy you are at this time of the year, so it's a great pleasure for us to be able to lay on this webinar. I'll simply give you a quick update on the progress to date with SNFL and a little bit about our aims and objectives for the future, and then I'll hand over to Rachel, Michelle, Carlos, and Andre, who will give you a much more in-depth analysis of what's actually happening with our varieties in the marketplace, and particularly the exciting opportunities that we see for Australian table grapes in the future. A little bit of history first of all, and for us it all started back in the 90s when we formed a partnership in California with Tim Shein, who was then in the process of setting up as an independent grape breeder. As you know, grape breeding is a very long-term undertaking, and Tim's first step was to travel the world collecting a very diverse gene pool of parental material to start off his program. In these early years, he performed thousands of crosses and produced about 300,000 hybrids in total. Then over the years, we selected potential new varieties from these hybrids, and from these selections, we were able to develop some of the varieties that we know today, such as Ivory, Timpson, Allison, Great Green, along with many others. Many of you might actually have met Tim because he was a regular visitor to Australia in the early 2000s when he embarked on the Shein Australia breeding program. Sadly, however, Tim passed away in 2009, but his legacy does live on. Shein Genetics is now wholly owned by SNFL, and to continue the work that he started, we set up the new Grapes Genesis breeding program in Spain in 2015. Under the direction of our breeder, Dr. Juan Carreño, and his team, our objective is to build on that legacy, focusing on disease resistance, enhanced flavor profiles, and high antioxidant content. Juan has already produced more than 300,000 hybrids, and many of the advanced selections are very exciting indeed. Now, several of these selections are currently going through quarantine here in Australia, and you will be able to see them very soon in Rachel and Navneet's test block. Now just a few words about our team. Our main headquarters is in Murcia in southeast Spain. Some of you have visited us there, where we also have our innovation center, and the Grapes Genesis scientific team are also based there. We then have teams in all the main table grape producing regions, including California, Mexico, Chile, Peru, Brazil, and South America, Spain, Italy, and North Africa, South Africa, and of course, Australia. And the key point here is that the vast majority of our people around the world are highly qualified agronomists and experienced technical specialists who spend all their working days in the vineyards with our grower customers. For us, the most important thing that we do is to ensure that our growers get the best possible results from our varieties, and for that we need an exceptional after-sales team. Here in Australia, Rachel and Navneet are key members of that team and active participants in a fantastic network of technical specialists. Now, a quick look at our progress to date. And you can see that we're now running at around 28,500 hectares of our varieties planted around the world. And we expect that to exceed 35,000 hectares by the end of this year. I think also this slide illustrates very well the long-term nature of grape breeding. We started the process with Tim back in the early 90s, as I said, but we didn't see our first commercial plantings until around 2006, and no real volumes until 2012. That was only 10 years ago. Here's how these plantings break down by country. And you can see, not surprisingly, California, Chile, Peru are the largest. But we're very proud of the progress that we're making in Australia at nearly 1,000 hectares, thanks to all of you. And we're certain that we will continue to see further new plantings here in Australia as varieties like Thompson, Crimson and Menindee are replaced. And as I said earlier, we do think there's a fantastic opportunity for Australian table grapes. Here's how it breaks down by variety. Our top 4 varieties, as you can see, Allison, Ivory, Timco and Timson. Looking to the future, though, I think we're going to see a lot more Great Green and Carlita growing in the ground as these varieties become more accepted by retailers, more demanded by retailers. Here in Australia, this is the variety breakdown. It's a little bit different from the worldwide situation. Our top variety here in Australia is Ivory, followed by Melody. Our worldwide top variety, which is Allison, is only in number 3 position here in Australia, but we expect that will change as more Crimson comes out in the future. This slide simply showing the volumes that we're producing. I think in total about 30 million boxes of the SNFL varieties, with again Allison and Timco, the 2 strongly performing red varieties, taking top spots in that chart. I just wanted to say a quick word about trial blocks, because these are the absolutely critical to developing the local production protocols that we need so that we get the best results out of our varieties in every location. I won't go through all the details of the different categorizations that we use in trial blocks, which we assign to our selections, because they're pretty self-explanatory. But of course, the easiest ones for us to deal with are the fast track and the discards, because the future of these varieties or these selections is clear. It's the ones in between that require all the work. But that's often where we find the hidden gems. And in fact, Carlita turned out to be one of them. The most important thing about trial blocks for us is to make sure that they're very well managed and that they're located in all the key production areas. When I say well managed, I don't just mean agronomically, but also meticulously observed and recorded by our own technical teams, so that we can take all that raw data and develop it into the local production protocols that help to get the best results from any one variety in any one location. And you can see that the trial blocks highlighted here in pink are again situated in the main production areas: USA, Mexico, Peru, Chile, Brazil, Spain, Italy, South Africa, and indeed here in Australia. I just wanted to finish off briefly by talking a little bit about the market awareness campaign that our marketing team are launching in Asia. Again, this is because we see a huge opportunity for Australian table grapes in Asia, notwithstanding some of the difficulties that you might be experiencing at the moment with China. But there are millions and millions and millions of people live in Asia and not in China. Michelle and Carlos and Dondre will talk a lot more about this, but the starting point for the marketing teams is always an in-depth analysis of what the consumer is looking for in terms of table grapes in each of the main Asian markets. And just a few are listed on this slide: full color, flavor, crunchy texture, etc. But we also need to communicate directly with these buyers and the consumers. And clearly nowadays that involves the dark arts of social media, about which I know absolutely nothing. So now it's a very good time for me to hand over to our younger team who do know a lot about social media. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Here we are in Ivory Seedless. Ivory is an exciting new variety ripening just before Menindi. It has large uniform berries which can size from 24 to 28 mil with excellent creamy green colour. It has a crisp texture and excellent flavour with a hint of muscat. Picked at 18 to 19 bricks, Ivory Seedless has excellent fertility, enabling very good pack out per vine. It is a new variety along with Allison and is getting very good traction in the Asian markets. Here we are in Timpson Seedless. Timpson Seedless is a mid-season white seedless variety. It comes in after Ivory and before Great Green. It has very high yielding bunch numbers. Berry size is 25 to 26 mil. It has a very firm, crisp, crunchy texture, and at the time of harvest it is picked with a mild muscat flavour to finish. It has long shelf life of up to 10 to 12 weeks, which is great for export and for travel. Timpson is a new up-and-coming white seedless variety, and it is received very well in the Asian markets. Here we are in Great Green. This is a mid-season white seedless variety. It's currently sitting on 12 to 13 bricks at the end of January. It has a beautiful crisp berry flavour. It will continue to size as sugar increases. It has very good attributes to travel. It keeps a good green stem and it has a very high yielding component. Hi, here I am in Timco. Timco is a mid-season red seedless. It is a very large berry, currently sitting on 25-26 mil. It is a variety that comes in just before Allison. It is currently 70 to 80% colour and the colour is natural. No ethereal has been applied. It has a very good bunch weight and is very high yielding variety. The berries are very crisp, they're crunchy, and this is a variety that travels well. I'm here in Sunraysia in a Allison patch. Today is the 20th of January. Looking at this crop load, we would be coming into harvest in 6 to 8 weeks time, mid to late March. The fruit is colouring well. We're sitting around 50 to 60% colour. Allison in the Sheehan program is our #1 planted variety worldwide. So Allison is starting to take traction here in Sunraysia and across Australia. Allison Seedless is a mid to late season variety, comes in a similar window to Crimson. It extends out the picking season and has a large crisp berry. Looking at the crop load here, we're looking at around about 2.5 to 3 boxes of vine. It travels well and is doing well in the Asian markets.
It's great to see you all, even though it's virtually. I hope I can go to Australia sometime soon. I always enjoy my trips to Mildura. So anyway, hopefully sometime in 2022. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Carlos Bonet, and I've been working for AmFresh for the last 4 years, for those of you who don't know me. Most of the time based in Singapore, running our Southeast Asia operations, where we still have a business and where we think Australia can play a very, very important role. But currently I'm based in the US. We do a very similar business where we supply retailers in US and Canada. And basically the solution of AmFresh is to supply the best grapes available all year round to our retailers. So in Southeast Asia, we're working in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, where we have people from our own company that run the QC inspections, that take care of the fruit, and that manage the logistics. And I'm in charge of arranging all these programs that we have into the retail programs. So I'm going to share a bit of information about the markets. I think that in general, there is a very promising trend, which we see both in Asia and in the US and Canada, which is that retailers want to understand more and more about the product they're buying. It's not like back in the day where they would go to the wholesale market, take all the fruit they needed for their shops, and that's it. Now they want traceability. They want to understand the farm. They want to understand if there's been a storm in one of the growing regions. They want to understand if the grower has all the certifications, all the audits in place, all of these things, which we think is a great thing, because the more knowledgeable a buyer is, the better they're going to buy for their clients, and the better we can do our job. So this is something that we think it's very positive. In Southeast Asia, it's been changing a lot. Most of the retailers we deal with, like Dairy Farm or Big C or Central, to name a few, they all have now a direct sourcing department, which is improving their way of buying, improving their understanding of the product. And this is great from a variety perspective, right? On top of that, I'd like to say that Australia, I don't know if some of you have read the article that was published on Fresh Plaza. We submitted an article from AmFresh. But it basically comes to say that Australia has a very interesting opportunity, especially this year. We believe that there's always a great opportunity for Australia because produce in Australia is considered very premium in Southeast Asia. And we think that this year specifically, there is an advantage, which again, probably it's springing from the logistics that are a nightmare. Some of you that do exports understand that freights are more expensive than ever. Transit times are longer than ever. Delays are more common than ever. So in all this situation, we are seeing that retailers are preferring to receive grapes from Australia than they are from Peru and Chile, for example, which are great countries of origin for grape production, as you may know. But transit times are above 40 days and delays are common. And when there is a delay, it's a 2-3 week delay. So it's a major issue for retailers. That's why Australia, not only because the quality is fantastic of your product, but also the proximity gives Australia a very, very important position in this market that we have today. South Africa is coming to an end, so the nature of buyers from Southeast Asia will be to look into Australia. There's very good news about Australia for buyers also in Southeast Asia, because you have very good varieties, and this is something that I wanted to touch base as well. As you are all aware, SNFL varieties are AmFresh varieties. We're the same company, and we always try to push for sales of our own varieties, which we think are fantastic. And we think not only that we think they are fantastic, but buyers think they are great, and that's why sometimes they order specifically a variety, like we have in Australia, for example, with Ivory that is starting now. I'll start with green seedless, but Ivory is a great variety. We're seeing it has excellent flavor. It's very crunchy. It has good size, and retailers know it, and they consider it a premium variety. For example, versus Menindi, even though both varieties are available at the same time, retailers are preferring, from what we're seeing, to take Ivory and pay an additional 20 to 25% on the price, but to get Ivory, because it's a good variety which they can store. It is crunchy. It is exactly what the clients are looking for in Southeast Asia. It's very consistent, very firm, and well, they know Ivory well because USA ships a lot of Ivory into Southeast Asia, and probably California is the best example of Ivory we've seen. We also see it in the market here, obviously, all the time, and it's a great variety. Another one I'd like to focus on is Timpson. Timpson obviously is a spectacular variety. It has a great muscat flavor. It travels well. It holds. And the best impression that buyers have in Southeast Asia is from Peru, where we have Pedregal as the main grower for Timpson, and the fruit is fantastic. The fruit quality is really impressive. And then I'd also like to focus on Great Green from Australia. We think that Great Green from Australia is the perfect example, or from what I've seen. Great Green is not an easy variety, but Australians grow it very well. It has a very good window where it's late, and there's almost nothing from South Africa by then. Chile maybe, but it doesn't compete with the Australian quality. Very crunchy, large berries. And we're also seeing that buyers prefer to pay a 20-25% extra on a Great Green from Australia than on a Thompson from Australia. So we're seeing that, and that's a very good sign, right? Where we're seeing that, retailers trust the variety, trust the brand, and think that it's the best experience for their clients. If we jump to red seedless, I'd like to focus on 4, starting with Carlita, which has a beautiful color. It's almost considered a pink seedless, from the color that is so intense at the same light. Very large, beautiful bunches that are grown very well in Spain. Spain, we think, is probably the best example of Carlita we've seen in the markets that we handle, where we have a main grower called Uvas 12 that does a great job at the field level, and it delivers a fantastic Carlita. Chrissy is a second variety I wanted to mention, with great flavor, great size. BRICS is always high enough for the Asian consumers. And we're seeing also that retailers are willing to pay an extra 10-15% for a Chrissy versus a Crimson from Australia, which is great. The Chrissy's we've seen in the market that are maybe the best representation of the variety could be Mexico, could be Peru, where the flavor is at its peak. Size is perfect, bunches are perfect. So it's a great variety as well to consider. Timco, of course, is a great variety. It's on all the lists of our US retailers, Canada retailers, Southeast Asian retailers. No wonder Timco is one of the most planted varieties that SNFL has in the planet. It's a grape that can be grown in different climates. It travels well, it's consistent. In the US, we see an amazing Timco. We see a neutral flavor that is, as I'm saying, very consistent, great color, great size, and retailers are always requesting Timco. So we're very proud of that variety. And then the last one I'd like to mention is Allison. Allison is the queen for us. Allison is the perfect grape variety because it, and then no wonder it is the #1 planted variety by SNFL in the planet. It is late, it has great size, great taste, great sugar level. It can travel, you can store it. It's just a perfect red seedless variety that we're bringing in from all over the world into the US, all over the world into Asia, because it always performs well. And it also has a premium on the price. So we're also able to offer Allison versus, again, Crimson at a higher price, and retailers will take it. They will prefer to take Allison. And we see amazing Allison, especially in the US, I think. So retailers here know it very well. But to Asia, as I'm saying, Allison from all over the world is very well regarded. And then just to finish off with black seedless, Melody. Melody is a fantastic variety. And I think also, like with Great Green, that Australia is probably the best representation of Melody. I was there in Robinville, I remember, well, before COVID. And the quality of the Melody we were seeing there is impressive. It has a great window. There are some markets like Vietnam that will pay premium prices, very high prices for a good Melody. It colors well. It's well received in a lot of countries, including Korea, Japan as well. And overall, it's a black variety that performs very well. We are always trying to offer Melody from Australia to our retail partners just because it's so well regarded, and we have very few issues with it. So these are a bit the varieties that we think are the ones we would feature from the markets we're at. Overall, very good recognition of the varieties from the buyers, which is, as I said at the beginning, a very good trend, that buyers are understanding more what they buy and are able to distinguish old varieties from new varieties. They understand their consumers, so they're willing to bring in grapes that they have tested already and that usually have a better performance at a store level. And overall, this is a bit the feedback from US, Canada, and Asia. We touched on the market, especially for Southeast Asia, for Australian products, because it's going to be a very good year, I believe. A lot of challenges, obviously, costs going up on materials, on logistics, on labor, on everything. So I think sometimes we can be slightly pessimistic when we see all of these increases in costs. But at the same time, I think the opportunity is good. The consumption of grapes is very good in Southeast Asia. And people are not going to stop eating grapes. So we can still need to produce very good, high quality grapes, try to keep this brand for Australian grapes that is perceived as very premium. And let's try to have a very good season together. Any questions, please feel free to ask Rachel for my contact info, and I'll be more than happy to speak to any of you. Have a great day and pleasure to see you all. Bye.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle from Rio-Ocean. It's my honor to be invited by AM Fresh to share some of my opinions about the Chinese market as well as the SNFL varieties. Rio-Ocean is one of the biggest importers from South Africa. AM Fresh is also our major suppliers from South Africa. As we know, AM Fresh is famous for its breeding programs all over the world. Every season, they bring us special new varieties to the Chinese market. This week, they are packing ivory for us. As a Chinese importer for almost 10 years' time, I'd like to share some of my feelings about the big changes in China. First of all, our local grape season starts from May to October, which is opposite from all the other Southern Hemisphere countries. But the situation is changing now, because the preservation technology of grapes in China has certain improvement, which can lengthen the season from October to late January or even early February. The cheaper price and longer season will definitely push stress on their early harvesting countries, such as Peru and South Africa. In the past, only if market is empty for the grapes, people can still pay for good price even if the quality is not good. However, China market is changing now. Consumers pursue good taste from nature. COVID brings us huge challenges and changed the whole world. In such a difficult environment, the biggest consideration for a good product is to see if it's tasty, natural, and healthy. Chinese market prefer nice bloom, crunchy, and sweet grapes. I must say, Ellison impressed me by its beautiful bloom. It's a bit dark color comparing with crimson, but it's definitely a good variety for the long journey. Timson has special muscat flavor. It's crunchy and sweet. The performance of Peruvian Timson is pretty good. Great Green is a late white seedless. It's famous for its giant size and the perfect appearance. Ivory for me is quite special, cause its special flavor and it's sweet and crunchy. But in meanwhile, to keep the balance of the good taste and the milky green color will be our biggest challenge. But I believe Ivory and Timson will be two biggest potential varieties after the full swing of sweet grape and autumn grapes in China market. The unique soil and weather conditions are the treasure for Australian growers. They can easily grow high-quality SNFL varieties such as Ellison, Ivory, and Great Green, etc. Australia can plant perfect pink color of red seedless and the milky green white seedless. All the above conditions make Australia so special and become the premium option of all the fresh imported fruit. Australian grape season is kicking off soon. Let's hope all the SNFL varieties can have a perfect performance in China market. Thank you for sharing the valuable time with me today and happy Chinese New Year. Bye bye.
Good morning from Masana, South Africa. My name is Dandre Gerber. I'm the Commercial Director at AM Fresh South Africa. I've had obviously we are in Africa, so I'm talking live from Stellenbosch in the Western Cape. It's a privilege to share some insight with everyone with regards to exporting table grapes from a South African perspective to the Asian markets. It's very important that customers always receive some of the best varieties throughout the world, and that's why we are very privileged to be associated with the SNFL group. Currently, the varieties that is commercially grown in South Africa from an SNFL perspective is Ellison, Timco, Ivory, and Timson. As Michelle rightly said just now, we are very excited about Ivory currently and Timson. We've exported our first Timson to China this year, and we've packed last week Ivory. We are in the peak weeks of Ellison and Timco in the Western Cape. And everything is all about what the customers want and focusing on quality of fruit that they prefer. When we harvest fruit from a South African perspective, we focus on cutting fruit out of blocks. The first cut going to Asia, as the transit time is a little bit longer, and we have a sterilization protocol that needs to be done when going to China. The Asian markets from a South African perspective is very important for us with regards to achieving premium prices. 50% of our total crop being exported from South Africa goes to Europe, and then 22% goes to the United Kingdom. And for that reason, the Asian market is very important for us. So with regards to trade agreements from a commercial side, we focus on market segments such as China, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. China, Vietnam normally takes 4.5 kilogram cartons from South Africa with bags or naked pack. And then Singapore, Malaysia normally prefer taking 10 by 500 gram punnets with labels. We are so excited about some of the new varieties that we are going to plant commercially. We are focusing currently on our first commercial plantings of Carlita. There's a little bit of a 215 that we are planting, and then obviously the lighter green seedless is very attractive with regards to great green, but there isn't any commercial volumes planted yet. When exporting table grapes to the Asian markets, we need to focus on long green stems. Color is always a very important aspect. What we've learned over the last 20 years is that not only the full color contributes to color, but you need to focus on good bloom. So rather focus on not cutting out smaller berry size, but rather not focus or rather not touching bunches. That's the main important thing. And then long green stems and uniform color is very important. We are very excited about Asia in total, and from a South African perspective, we are focusing on new market segments such as Indonesia and Korea, getting trade agreements in place. And from my side and the South African side, it's an honor to share this information with you, and good luck with your crop this season.
I do have a question now. As far as travel and shelf life goes, which varieties hold up and travel the best? This could be a question for Carlos and Dandri, maybe.
Hi, everyone. In our perspective, we're seeing that for the reds, Allison, Timco have a great shelf life. They're able to be stored for some time, and that's something that in Asia is very much appreciated. I think in the whites, Ivory definitely, Timpson, Great Green maybe slightly less, but it also has a very good window. I mean, these are the main varieties, and in blacks maybe Melody as well. These are the main varieties that we ship to Asia, the ones that are stored at a good temperature and they can hold very, very well if they're harvested in the good conditions. And yeah, in terms of storage, I think these have always worked quite well for most of our markets. Dandre, I don't know if you have the same opinion.
Yeah, from a South African perspective, obviously the transit time from South Africa is much further than the likes of Spain and other countries. So we need to focus on varieties that travels very well. What we've seen over the last few years with regards to new varieties, within the European market, our transit time is about 4 or 5 weeks. Asia obviously is a little bit longer, but varieties that travels fantastically from a South African perspective is Ivory. Timpson is most probably one of the varieties that can store the best of any breeding program, and we've tested and trialed that. And then varieties on the red seedless that does very well is Allison and Timco. So those are the varieties from an SNFL perspective that's been commercially grown hectare-wise the most from a South African perspective. And whenever growers obviously plant varieties in volume, it speaks for itself. So Allison at this stage is the most planted variety in South Africa, and then followed by Timco, and we are very excited about expanding on green seedless with the likes of Ivory and Timpson.
Yeah, and just to add, in our experience this year, which is probably one of the worst years to ship grapes across the planet, just because the transits are so long and delays are so common. From Peru, we've done a trial with Allison, and we've shipped Allison from Callao port to Southeast Asia, which has a transit of 42 days, if I'm not wrong, and it had a delay of about 2 weeks, and the fruit is still holding. It has good legs. So we've seen that, no, Allison has been impressive from Peru. When grown well, when packed well, the storage and the shelf life of the variety has been impressive, really.
I just want to add, so the cold storage evaluation trials that Navneet and I have conducted over the last 2 years, Timpson and Ivory would definitely be the outstanding whites. We've been getting and we're seeing really good results 10 to 12 weeks after harvest. Allison, we're getting 9 to 11 weeks post-harvest, and the other one is Kalita. Kalita we're seeing anywhere between 8 to 11 weeks with really good cold storage. So yeah, look, the whites are very outstanding in the Shen program.
I just want to add on that what we see also is obviously the playing field throughout the world with regards to supply is totally changing. This season is the first season where we saw Allison and Timco playing a major part with regards to supply from Peru. Some of the earlier parts in South Africa, we've got growers that still grows Flame, Early Sweet and Prime, and we are at this stage being pushed out of certain retail programs throughout the world because of customers obviously wanting varieties that is crunchy, has high sugar levels, and that arrives very well. So we are a little bit in a difficult situation with regards to our early supply from up north in the Limpopo area and also from the Orange River area. And that's where I think going forward, early varieties in the SNFL group, such as Ivory and Timpson, will play a major part going forward. We saw throughout the last 8 years where we export Timpson, for instance, in week 48 from Namibia with vast success within a lot of customers receiving it. So that is definitely a major focus point from a South African perspective. Planting varieties that has higher sugar levels, is very crunchy, good color, and arrives very well.
Thanks, Andrew. Do any more growers have any more questions out there? No.
All quiet, Rachel.
It is very quiet. It's nearly 6 o'clock, so they might be. Yeah.
It's a long day.
Long day. No, there's no more questions in our question and answer. So can I hand back over to you, Duncan?
Yes, okay, thanks very much indeed. And thank you everybody for your contributions, but particularly thanks to you growers for tuning in today. I'm sorry we had a couple of technical difficulties right at the start, but it was only me that was cut off, so that doesn't really matter. You got the most important messages from Michelle, from Carlos, from Dondre, and from Rachel. Don't forget, you'll be able to download the link to this whole thing, which has been recorded. And if you've any particular questions, please come back to us either directly to Rachel or through Rachel, and she'll pass on the questions for us. We'll be very happy to answer you. It's a great disappointment that we're unable to visit Australia at the moment. We're normally there around about this time of the year. Hopefully that will change for next year. But in the meantime, once again, thanks very much indeed for your time. We do appreciate it, and we hope that the rest of the season goes well for you. Thank you very much indeed.